Did you know that your dreams are actually just simulations running over and over again at night while you sleep? Especially during REM sleep, it creates this really weird thing that your eyes shoot back and forth. A really interesting little mechanism in simulation with our human avatars. It's one of the reasons why, when they're telling you to do certain things during hypnosis or different type of trance techniques, you move your eyes in specific ways. Everything is just like this code embedded in the simulation. And if you can start to unlock the patterns, you start to see the bigger picture. So if you're interested in this type of information, please make sure to stay tuned and stay to the end, because I'm extremely serious about what I'm saying here. I'm not trying to sell you any type of course. I'm not asking you to click a link. You don't even have to subscribe or like the video. I hope that by the end of this video, you take this knowledge and move through the simulation in a much more awakened state, like I wish I did before. I knew about a lot of this information, but I always used it in a very cavalier way. Insofar as I wasn't sure about it, I felt like this could be true. I knew that there was weirder things going on here, but I didn't recognize the actual power have to affect change in our environment, in our simulation. It wasn't sinking in to the level that it was. I always have been very successful. I've always done very well in life, but with these principles and knowing that this is just this environment where I'm proposing that it is a simulation for the next simulation. If your dreams are a simulation running all night long of what could be potentially happening in the future, why wouldn't this walking life be the same thing? I think deeply about these things, like, were we Neanderthals at one point? I feel like we're just avatars, human avatars, whatever type of beings walking this environment in the simulation is just a render point for consciousness to be able to come down and stream and restream forever and ever and continue the expansion. You may have been a Neanderthal in a past life, and you may be some sort of superhuman techno person in the future simulation. So we're just running simulations on simulations on simulations, if you will. Times at night, you could consider a training ground, if you will. And that's what each simulation is. It's a training ground for the next simulation. So if there's something in this simulation that you did not accomplish, you can move on to the next render and begin to accomplish it again. You just have to wake up even sooner in that version of your life, if you will. It's very much so on par with everything you've probably heard about incarnation. These concepts all align very well with one another. And I think that that's why we keep experiencing these different phenomena and these different occurrences in our dreams. And I'm proposing that during your lucid dreams, you can consciously take hold and shift into the reality that you want. It's not necessarily about just manifesting a $100,000 car. It's about recognizing that there's a larger system at play here. There are patterns. There are just a way of life that you can live. $100,000 car is just a byproduct. It comes by proxy because you end up learning and understanding the patterns. You unlock perhaps the money pattern. That's one of the patterns that I definitely like to conjure up. And it's extremely interesting the way the sim will deliver these renders to you. Because, say, for example, I was thinking about different ways you can make money. I want to have multiple streams of income because I find that fun and interesting. That's something fun to expand into. And recently I was sent a bag that I did not order. It was a part of a package, and it was sent to me in place of something that I guess they didn't have, and I ended up just keeping it. And I didn't realize when I went to go put it on sale on eBay, it was worth a lot of money. And the moment that I put it up for sale, it literally sold within 2 minutes. And I was able to earn like, I think it was like $130 on a transaction that took me like 5 minutes to complete. So that was a really fun way to remember how I used to even use eBay before. And I have a lot of things that I would love to sell and get off of my property. It's one fun way that the simulation gave me something for free. I technically didn't pay for it. Well, I paid like $4.50 for it or something because they didn't send me the original thing, the original bag that I wanted. And I ended up earning that much money for what was just a little bit of work. It was something that I did on my way to get gas anyway. So it was really interesting how different things start to become delivered to you. So now I'm really comfortable with going online and starting to sell things on eBay. I used to here and there years ago, but now I recognize how quickly I can make sales on there, and the fact that that's just one avenue that if you give your brain a idea or a problem at night, what it's doing is simulating different scenarios. It's going through different mechanisms to be able to work something out. And what I'm saying isn't just something that I'm just making up. Let me pull up some scientific research for you. When you fall asleep, the conscious logical part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, begins to quiet down. This is the part that filters information, questions everything, overthinks, and often resists change. That part goes offline, other areas come online. Your hippocampus starts replaying the day's memories, looking for patterns. Your limbic system starts processing emotions. And your default mode network activates, which is the system in your brain responsible for imagination, identity, and self-reflection. Comes REM sleep, where your brain lights up with activity. You begin dreaming, not randomly, but strategically. Your brain is trying to make sense of what happened, solve unsolved problems, and stimulate alternate outcomes, testing different futures before you live them. It's called predictive coding, and your brain does it constantly. In other words, your brain is simulating you in different realities over and over again every night. So the takeaway from that is to start taking conscious control of that. And if there's something that you want to achieve in this lifetime, if you want to become a writer, if you want to become some sort of actor or a singer, if you want to go on Broadway, if you want to have a huge business, if you want to move to another country, if you want some sort of life goal or trajectory for yourself, use these mechanisms and modalities in your life and you will achieve them. Start picking out the patterns. Start training your subconscious, because we are all just a product of what we're consuming prior to. So if you think about it, if your nightly dreams are a constant simulation of your day's render, that means that it's going off of what you were thinking about previously, what you were shown previously. You have to show it new things. You have to start showing it what you do want. Start rehearsing in your brain scenarios that you want. Start talking in ways that only support the scenarios that you want to come before you, and in such ways that are attainable in the simulation. I'm not going to be somebody who sits up here and tells you that you should act cavalierly, is that a word, with your avatar. You can get hurt, and I actually recently did. If you see that, I have a nasty burn I got from oil, and it was done while I was cooking. And even while I burned myself, I stared at it and attempted to stand in my God bodiness, and attempted to stand in my sourceness, and attempted to timeline shift and say, this never happened. I did not get burned. I'm not burned. There's no way I'm burned. I kept even thinking that. And then I tried to ignore it. And then it started to burn more. So then I was like, it doesn't matter. at the end of the day, is still a 3D avatar, and I still experience pain like we all do. And we can't just pretend that that does not exist, or that certain real world kind of problems don't need more pattern recognitioning in them than just saying that you acknowledge that you were the creator of everything. Because I didn't feel good when I did that, and I could accept that I was multitasking, and I can accept that it was my fault that I did it. But somebody could try to attempt to say, like, me thinking about it or even acknowledging it is accepting its existence, but the hard pill to swallow, that is like Jesus level. And I would like for somebody to really experience something like this to your avatar, and then be able to have it heal automatically, like shift to where you get burned, and then like within a day you're not burned anymore. That does happen for some people. I'm not saying that that's not a possibility, but I guess I'm not that good, because it's taking me about, I don't know, like a week and a half, probably in like 4 more days. It'll probably peel, and then it'll have taken my body about 2 weeks to heal that specific burn. Could I have potentially attempted to do other things to make it quicker? Yeah. Could I have went and, like, in my lucid dreams attempted to pretend it never happened? You know, things of this nature. Of course. Could I try to re-script what happened and say that it never happened? Yeah, sure, fine, I can. But sometimes there are scars that get left. I guess it's, you know, you could claim it's whatever story that you tell yourself, but my avatar has scars and other things that have happened in my life that, no matter how much I actually believe I am one with source, have not changed for me, because I think that this is a playground to be experienced, to transcend the idea that we have control over everything, to transcend the idea that we can just be in our God bodiness and just have everything fall to our will and like exactly do as we say. I'm not saying that that can't happen for some people at certain modalities and points in time, but there's points in life that are ebbs and flows. That's why, quote unquote, heaven and hell exists. These are just fragments of the mind. This morning I was free writing and wrote out this quote that really felt the truth of what these things are when people experience demons and all these things that are in such opposition of what you would think that a God, quote unquote, would want. And these are states of mind that the imagination is able to produce that precedes its previous imaginations or experiences. So if you are in the state of experiencing something negative, you can then create an experience that is even more negative for another piece of consciousness. It's almost like the pattern builds upon itself. If one person takes a monster, then the monster gets snowballed into a larger monster, and then we make the monster expand. If we all kind of hallucinated our way around the sim a little bit differently, I think some of these monsters would start to fall away out of consciousness, because we would not be rendering those images in our imagination. Because again, if you think about it, anything that you're seeing around you is from imagination. Anything, this camera that you're seeing me on, the mic that is picking up the vibration of my voice, that's another thing. Like, your senses are there for a reason. They are data points, and they're just ways to experience the sim just the same way you would experience a VR headset. Why do you think that they create those? They're trying to create the human experience virtually, so then you can go and experience other realities like you do in your dreams. Because in your dreams, it is that simulated game where you can act however, and there's no real seemingly for the things that you were doing in your dreams. Could this be the case for a larger reality? Yes, absolutely. The next life could just be some sort of larger simulation at play, and I don't personally believe it ever ends. I believe it just is a cyclical pattern of expansion into infinity. That's why the word infinity exists, because there is no tangible word to be able to describe the vastness of what this actually is. So take these things seriously and start to implement them and start creating the patterns in your own life. People create patterns in so many different ways. It's picking up the patterns. It's the quality of the questions that you're asking yourself. The things that I create my videos on aren't just for fun. It's me exploring the simulation, but knowing that I'm just exploring and that it's all for fun and that I enjoy being here because I've experienced what it felt like to be on the other side of the simulation. It can be unnerving if your mind is not prepared for it. And I think that's what this simulation or simulator, whatever you want to call it, is meant to be. It's a preparatory stage for the next rendition. Like I mentioned before, who knows what we will all be in the future. I can imagine myself running around as a Neanderthal at one point, and I'm sure I can imagine myself as some sort of being in the cloud, just like you see on all of these strange TV shows and these strange movies. They're pulling this out of the void or out of the liminal spaces, just like all of the scientists have. If you think about it, all of the major folks that have played parts in grand inventions across our universe have pulled these out of the hypnagogic state. They have been in trance. They have been in these states where they're able to access this other information. Their brain and consciousness put together create the simulation and the puzzles, and then it works itself out and it gives you all these possibilities. And that's where enter a la quantum physics, where we live in an endless choice, an endless land of potentialities, because your brain is rendering endless potentialities at night. That's why you don't remember your dreams. You are basically rendering endless simulations. So this is where it's important, and why they've always said, like, don't fall asleep mad. All these little cues that you probably have heard throughout your life, it's making sure that you're falling asleep with the information that you want your mind to prepare you for the next day. It's as if your brain is your secretary, and before you go to sleep, you need your secretary to take notes of all the visualizations that you're having, or just the things that you want to experience in this 3D. We are imagination stations. We are experiencer renderers. The brain renders experience. So it's up to you to recognize that and then start using it consciously, and not just looking at these things as if it's, ooh, wow, cool, neat, weird. Because I did that for a long time. And you have to raise above that and have the awareness that it's more than meets the eye, and start using it, especially if you find that certain things are not working for you. This might open up your mind. I hope that this has opened up your mind so far that you can't go back now. This information has shown you now that you have creative control, or rather you have, because nothing's neither created nor destroyed, as they say. You have the ability to shift into whatever timeline you want to. There's an infinite number of possibilities. So there's an infinite number of you rendering whatever possibility that you're looking for. And if you give that to your brain at night over and over again, remember I did a whole video on the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, all that jazz. The universe likes rhythmic patterns. That's why we all act in rituals. If you can come up with your own ritual, it doesn't have to be subliminals, witchcraft, religion. It doesn't have to be any of that. They are all just tools. Jesus, for example, I think was an enlightened being and he recognized this. Everything is a tool. It's all within you to recognize what works for you. What is your internal cue? What is your internal rhythmic pattern that sets off the larger thing at play here that you want to see in front of you render? And that's where I hope my channel delivers this information to anybody that feels like they're lost, or they don't know why they're here, or they feel like they don't know how to reality shift in their life, or they're doing things over and over again. But if your inner dialogue all the time is not of one where you want to be, if it's always judging yourself, if it's always negative, and you have to recognize that a lot of that is childhood programming. A lot of that is programming in the first 7 years of your life. And if you don't listen to yourself inside, and if you're somebody that doesn't have an inner dialogue, it would be rendering off like your visual cues and your feelings. You would let your left or right side of your brain, whatever, help you navigate the sim. And that's why we do have a left and a right side of brain, because the left side of your brain is the more logical side where it helps you figure certain things out. But then the right side of your brain is that more intuition led, where it's like, oh, does this feel good in my gut? Is this what I should be doing? It's almost like what the pigeons use to be able to navigate. They just know how to go home because it's internally inside of them, and they just know how to get there without having to probably think or process that much stuff. It's just the GPS internally that guides them. So it's having that equilibrium between the left side and your right side of your brain. Often people like to equate this to your masculine and feminine, like the guys are more logical, the women are more intuitive. I get this. I totally see why people say this. I can often have shiny object syndrome, but that's what life is. It's a spiral. I don't know if anybody on this channel has heard of spiral dynamics. I should do a video on that alone. But as you spiral up, you have like a greater awareness of consciousness. And I can often spiral up and down that entire equation. There's plenty of times where I feel like I can turn right back into a caveman, and then I can turn right back into feeling like I am, one with the universe, and God is me and I am in God, and I see everybody in me, and everybody is just a figure of my internal imagination pushing outward, as the Neville community likes to say. But there's also the flip side where you can spiral right back down, and it takes a very strong individual to be in that. I can't even remember what the top color is, but to stay in the top tier color, it's turquoise, I think. To stay in that color takes a lot of internal work, because a lot of us have triggers from what we've learned throughout the years. A lot of us have preconditioned ways of thinking from our parents, from our family, from society, from people bullying you, from people telling you can't do things, from just whatever you may encounter in your life. If you believe those things that people told you, you can let that soak into your subconscious, especially if you're thinking about it at night. You're thinking about the negativity that people have told you. Your subconscious then begins to work on that. And if you believe that that's a part of your story, it will create those rendition and will continue to produce those experiences for you, because again, it is all basically just an experience renderer. The simulation is here to render nothing but conscious experience for God to be able to come down and stream. He can stream into any consciousness at any time, any level of it consciousness. He can stream into me, he can stream into you, and I say he because it's just my programming, but just the omnipresence, the observer, the watcher of it all. And that's why we were talking about quantum physics earlier. the observer effect. We've proven already with science that once you observe something, it starts to act funny. The particles behave differently. All the things that have been strange in quantum physics explain a lot of this stuff, because the simulation, I don't think, wants to be ultimately discovered. It is a mechanism and a modality of surprise. I think that's why it likes novelty so much. It grows off of novelty. That's why things that are stagnant stay stagnant, and that's why things that are expanding, because they're always in a stage of looking for something new. And that's why I like even researching these subjects, because it gives my brain all of these novel experiences and these aha moments. And that is what also grows your ability to render all of these scenarios in your brain. You become more and more aware of how to lucid dream, of how to work in the hypnagogic. I work a lot in that stage now. I do it also just for the pure enjoyment of it all. Sometimes it feels like I'm watching a movie and it's not my movie. It's really fun. It's fun to just go in and do nothing, but it's also fun to go in and control it and say, tomorrow I want to go do X, Y, and Z, and fall asleep to that. And then you will have these things that will have ideas in your mind in the morning. And then suddenly I'll know what to do for the day. And my body just leads me to it. No idea how many times I just get in the car and go and have all these fun, amazing experiences, especially now since moving to Florida, which is my main proof. I know this is a simulation. I fell asleep to this house so many times, and I fell asleep speaking to the owner of this house so many times. And the fact that nobody ever put a bid on it, the fact that it sat and all the people, and I remember playing the scenarios in my head, all the reasons and excuses why people wouldn't want the house. And when I came here, there was a stack of papers that had all of the reasons and excuses why people didn't want the house. And I transformed the house into my own tropical paradise. And I am trying to tell you to dream big, because I could have even gone further with things, but I didn't, because people told me I shouldn't live on an island because hurricane insurance is ridiculous and like I can get flooded and, washed away, etc., etc. But I can't always listen to everybody else. And I know that there's some truth to that, but I could have had like bigger dreams and could have been out there potentially. But needless to say, it's keep dreaming no matter what the dream is. And what that means is think about what you want to experience in the simulation before you fall asleep at night. And when you're in the hypnagogic state, in that state akin to sleep, as they like to call it in the Neville community, the part where you're falling asleep and you're in the liminal space. I have videos on that too. It's the liminal space in between awake and sleep, like walking down an empty hallway. And in that space, you start to imagine what you want to see next on the screen of life. And if you do this in enough times, in enough patterns, like for example, just like the Fibonacci, life in the sim has no choice but to give you that pattern back. The universe has no choice but to mirror that. That's why the mirror principle works for everything as well. As within, so without, as above, as below, all that jazz. It's all tied into this, because it is all just fractals of fractals of fractals in a holographic universe that is a project of your mind. If you bring it all back to the light, back to the source, back to the one piece that is watching it all, that is how that works. And it all comes from imagination, because as I mentioned before, if you look around, nothing around you has come out of thin air from the perspective of, is it just landed there? It came from something, and everything comes from something. So we came from universal consciousness. It is mind. Matter comes from mind. So you need to understand that you are eternal consciousness. You actually created the simulation for your own expansion, for your own enjoyment, for your own self-actualization and also for the training program for the next level, because it's trying to get to that next experience that you want to have. Because you may have been born into something peculiar or bizarre, but it's the excitement and novelty of watching that expand and grow. That's what it is. Regardless of whatever point you are at your life, it's the act of expansion. It's the act of seeing that drama unfold, no matter what level, and then making sure we spiral up. And then, I don't know, once we spiral up all the way, everybody does it turn back over and start all over again and then keep going round and round for infinity. And we are just all projections over and over again of mind and consciousness into eternity. And this is just an experience that we get to have in one of the liminal spaces of the simulations. So it's a lot of food for thought. Like, this is the truth. It's all making too much sense. I can literally connect anything back to this, no matter what esoteric tech somebody tells me, what anybody tries to bring up or theorize. I can fold it all back into this and fold it all back to mind. And it's something, again, that I knew years ago. Even when I was younger, I felt like I kind of knew it, but you just didn't know how to use it or what to do with it, other than kind of think like, this is cool, but like, what do I do? And I'm telling you, this is what you do. You control the simulation. You built it. You just have to wake up to it and recognize it during your walking day. It's your walking dream. And during your night, rehearsing your next walking dream. And you're going to keep doing this until infinity. So the more you can become awake and start to become the observer and experiencer, being able to create the experiences that you want to see in this reality, I think the more we'll start to walk around and feel more confident as to why we're actually all here and doing any of this at all. So I know everybody enjoyed this episode, and until the next time, guys, I know you're all going to continue to manifest magic and resonate on your highest frequency. Bye, guys.